Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Karan Thakkar, and I'm the founder of Threco, the recycling company. Thank you all for being here today. Before we start, I would like to request each one of you to keep yourselves on mute. We'll take all questions at the end of the session, which will be moderated by my colleague Hemal on your behalf. So, would request each one of you to please type the questions in the comment box. Sustainability 2.0 in times of COVID-19 is a webinar series we have launched to start conversation and share insights with entrepreneurs and leaders about environment and sustainability. In the current times, it has been established that an imbalance in the environment can put everything on hold. While the phase is temporary, it is time to relook at our equation with environment. Today, we are going to address the topic plastics, hero or villain. I'm sure this question has occurred to most of us at some point or the other. And we are honored to have one of the best minds in the industry who has contributed significantly to the plastic waste management systems in India, Mr. Rishi Agarwal. Rishi has over 2 decades contributed to numerous environmental campaigns of public interest. He has contributed to saving mangroves along Mumbai coast, waste management, urban sustainability, and improving governance. He is the founder and director of Mumbai Sustainability Center. Actually, I would like to share a very interesting fact uh, about how I know Rishi. After I quit my job, this was in the year 2010, I used to work for KPMG. There was very little knowledge that I had about recycling, waste management, and the on-ground realities. And to my surprise, not many people were willing to share information or give a helping hand, which is where coincidence had it, and I met Rishi through a common friend. And what amazed me that was that not only that Rishi was so passionate about the subject, but and was working relentlessly to save the mangroves, but also how willing was he to help anyone who approached him. Since then, everything and anything that I did, Rishi was a part of it. I used to also teach at a school for a very brief period, and Rishi came there as a guest speaker as well. Rishi, do you remember that?
Yeah, Matunga, right? I forget the name of the school.
Yeah, Shishuvan.
Shishuvan.
And hence, I'm very glad that Rishi is with us today. Rishi, before I ask you the first question for today, I would be and I'm sure all of us are very intrigued and would like to know that, what was the trigger that you got into environmental issues?
So I think environmental issues has been a part of my life since I was a child. But frankly speaking, part of the real trigger, I think, was that I wasn't born in Mumbai. I was born in the north in a hill station called Mussoorie. And I spent my childhood over there till the age of 12, I think. And already I was deeply, madly in love with nature. But then, due to certain family reasons, we had a shift and I came to Mumbai. And I think that stark contrast between an urban environment and a very pristine, green, natural environment really triggered off a deep desire that we should do something about the planet which harbors life and all of us. So I think, and then of course from teenage on, it's a long time now. It's always been a part of life. I was just reading some. I mean, it was kind of a joke on myself. I was reading a quote which said from somebody else, sensitivity equals to poverty. So I said yes, okay. In that sense, I'm extremely sensitive, and I kind of got thinking. But anyways, jokes apart, yeah.
But I think in the current times, I would say sensitivity really equals to empowerment.
Yeah.
So again, and on that note, I'll ask you our first question for today.
Right.
That there have been so many discussions. I think just before the entire this panel started, we both were chatting about how there has been so many discussions about ban on plastic, and there are growing concerns about how it is polluting environment. This was going on, like you just mentioned about the 2018 scenario. But when we look at today's scenario, it is playing a key role in protecting the people, especially our frontline workers. Everything that is made today, like, from the personal protective equipment to everything, it's all plastic. So is plastic a hero or villain?
The answer clearly unambiguously is that it is both. It's a hero, it's a villain. It's become a hero because of human ingenuity. I mean, imagine something like crude oil, pumping it out of the ground, and then you're through human ingenuity able to make millions of articles of daily use.
Can you be a little louder?
Yeah, I'm saying it's completely human ingenuity which has transformed something like crude oil into millions of articles of daily use, which are adding so much of value to the planet. But then it is that same ingenuity and intelligence which has unfortunately not come into play when it comes to handling the waste which is generated from these articles of daily use. And this could be FMCG goods, or it could be even your laptop, mobile phone, anything, name it. But not handling it properly is the paradox. And I think if we start handling the plastic waste properly, and which is entirely possible, as you know it very well, then there is no question of villain. It's only a hero in that case.
True. In fact, what comes to my mind is, and when I was reading about plastic, that how it was during the World War II that plastic got so much prominence, and I think most of some of the best developments that we've seen, everything got pushed during that time, and it has definitely become a great replacement to so many products. And I think, as you rightly said, that what happens to the end of life disposal of plastic is something that is not being considered, or is not being given importance. And I think maybe that's the reason, because of the recycling bit and because of the waste management bit, it turned out to be a villain, and the kind of pollution we saw around. So do you think that at the beginning, like I think even when the coronavirus broke down, if enough information, enough advocacy, and enough emphasis was given on the fact that with the use of masks, gloves, and other PPE equipment, please also be careful about how to dispose it. What are the methodologies, so that even a common man can understand the importance of disposing it in the right way? Do you think that would have made a difference?
Karan, it will be a slightly longish answer, but I'll try to keep it as succinct. See, these things we have to realize that these things don't happen overnight. Yeah, I mean, a pandemic suddenly strikes, and you realize that the consumption of plastic has gone up through the roof, and you feel that okay, we'll just put a newspaper ad or make some social media marketing messaging, and people will suddenly adopt it. No, it doesn't happen that way at all. And that's been the whole of my life work, that you need to really work at behavior change, and behavior change takes time. It takes years and years of relentless working on it. All of it is there in the rules. So I think these things don't happen overnight at all. And that's why the crisis we are facing right now, because over these years, we've not put the processes in place. Putting processes in place takes a lot of time. There are breakdowns in the processes, there are iterations to it. I mean, we are not even able to do something as simple as segregating or not mixing food and non-food waste at source. And I'm not even talking about domestic hazardous waste, because invariably nobody knows anything what to do with domestic hazardous. Place. A lot of people segregate waste, and then the common complaint is that the municipal corporation mixes it back again. So these are things which, unless you don't work during your normal peacetime, then during wartime or a crisis time like this, you suddenly cannot end up rising to the occasion.
So I think a small steps, behavioral change continuously is important. So single-use plastic usage has gone up. Recycling centers, as we are aware, are closed. Biomedical waste is not being treated. As we get out of one health crisis, are we looking at a major plastic waste crisis?
Absolutely. I think all the news that we are hearing is the PPE equipment, especially, is all ending up at dumping grounds.
Right.
And rack pickers and informal sector workers are at enormous risk. And this is where, Karan, I'm saying that those workers were anyways at risk. Had we had this sensitivity, the empathy towards their working conditions, then we would have realized that even in normal times, they are vulnerable to so much of health hazards. But now this is a and also their immune systems can be compromised, which means that we are adding another layer now to their already difficult working conditions. So it's kind of terrible.
Okay. But I mean, what next? Do you think that I mean, what is the kind of plastic crisis that we see from here?
I think what next in a big way would be also an answer which people like you, entrepreneurs like you, have to really give, because like I continuously keep saying that the waste management industry is the perfect place for green entrepreneurs. And people like me do advocacy primarily. I'm involved at times with waste management projects, etc. But my primary role has always been advocacy. And so we need those systems in place. We need the
We are also getting
enterprises in
messages.
place.
Can you be a little louder? I think maybe if you put that, uh, just got a message from the audience. I think somebody, I just happened to read it. You can be a little louder.
Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'll just hold on to the.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of summarize what I said. I said that the role of enterprises and at all levels, small, medium, large, is really important to handling this waste crisis. And the need for processes, everything is there in the rule book. You know the rule book much better than me. And all those rules just need to be implemented.
You know, Rishi, very interesting. In our last webinar also, what we discussed is that maybe the manner in which the waste management system is designed in India can be relooked at. I think
Yeah.
what we are seeing is there's a fantastic opportunity also that all of us, we have to ask questions and maybe redesign. And I think I just take your point again that what you said is nothing can be achieved overnight. There has to be behavioral change and things being have to be done on an ongoing basis.
Persistently.
Yeah, so in I think the current scenario, the biomedical waste being taken to a center and being treated there, clearly in a pandemic situation like this shows that there need to be more recycling centers, there need to be more segregation centers in a much more localized format, so that if at all in a lockdown scenario, I wish it does not happen, but things can be done on a more regular basis, day-to-day basis, and a decentralized way. So we have more recycling centers like that. And I think, as you rightly said, I think the importance of our sanitation workers has only become more evident now with the current.
Yeah.
So Rishi, coming back to plastics, can we achieve circular economy for plastics? Is EPR, extended producer responsibility in plastic, successful? And what has been your experience with Safai Bank and MLP?
Uh, Good question, Karan. We've been working on advocacy for EPR in India for a very long time,
Yes.
and that finally materialized in the 2016 rules. But having said that, I think the processes are not fully in place. I would say that the manufacturers are not doing anything. People are doing things, but we need to realize that outcome is important. And if you ask me, I think we have about 50 plus cities with a population of million. And if you look at the dumping grounds of any of the cities, you still find that millions of articles which still find their way to the dumping ground. Had the extended producer responsibility rules been in place, then these articles wouldn't be finding their way to the dumping grounds at all. And I mean, I'll just take these examples, right? I mean, this is a Parachute coconut oil bottle. If you look at the fine print, they do mention that anybody who's returning it back will get a price of, say, 10 rupees a kg or 15 rupees a kg. But each empty bottle is maybe 50 grams. And even to collect 1 kg will take such a long time.
True.
So nobody's going to store all of that. And I'm not even talking about lighter pack things like all these kind of packets, where the manufacturer will put just a message, and possibly it is understood that your responsibility ends with putting a message over there. But I think that's only the beginning of your responsibility. And also, when we did the Safai Bank program, we realized that there are companies, the PROs, which were employing rag pickers at the dumping ground to extract all this material from the dumping ground. And then they were doing an audit, giving all the data to the pollution control board, to the FMCG companies, which is a terrible way of doing things. I mean, in a world where we become so intelligent over the past 200 years, so much of innovation with technology, and then we are doing this kind of a thing, which just is terrible. I mean, uh, beginning of the pipe and end of the pipe. These are favorite words in environmental policy. That every solution which we implement at the beginning of the pipe has manifold returns. And the returns need not just be economic returns. These are health returns, these are environmental returns, these are labor law returns, labor dignity of labor returns. And picking all this stuff at the dumping ground is a terrible way to do things. And that's why at Safai Bank, the whole initiative, the hallmark of the initiative was that at the beginning of the pipe, where this waste is generated, we are taking it away in a very segregated, clean manner. And it's extended producer responsibility, but it's also extended consumer responsibility, as we put it. Because we are saying that if you are consuming this banana chips, or if you're consuming this kind of a Tetra Pak, the producer has one responsibility. But as a consumer, if you can separately bank it, and that's what we were opening Safai banks, and you can deposit it in a bank, then for me it is much more easier to pick this up from you from a bank rather than go to the dumping ground after it has been soiled. And maybe I can show you some of the photos, but of course people are aware of the kind of conditions. Let me just 1 second. If the sharing can be enabled, then I'll just show a picture of the compactor truck and how painful it is to see compactor trucks and the kind of method in which we transport our waste. Can I show a picture?
Yeah, please.
1 second. No, Hemal will have to enable, I think, host disabled participant screen sharing. No problem. I think we can show it later.
Okay. So maybe, if there's time. So in fact, Rishi, coming back to the EPR discussion, my view and experience has been that I think when rules and regulation are being introduced, the idea is to ensure that, the pollution is controlled, a circularity is established, data is being captured. But I think what has really happened is, because of the lack of ownership from a lot of companies, is where I think it has really faltered. And I think when we go to companies and like you're also aware that in EPR, as a recycler or as a PRO, you have to submit a quotation that how much plastic can be recycled. And I think the minute you get into that price negotiation is where it becomes a checklist approach. And I just feel that, and I think that also gives opportunity to a lot of players like us, that how transparently and how data driven a system that can be done, like your Safai Bank, where you can practically see that where is the material movement, how much is being consumed, where is it consumed. And I think there are so many social stories that come out of it, like you rightly mentioned, that there have been so many things that are happening at the landfill level. Small children are being made to pick up the recyclables and then recycle it. So I think, to my mind, is also somebody taking the charge and saying that, okay, things has to be done separately. At the same time, I really feel that companies who are making difficult to recycle products should be penalized or should be somehow made accountable. Like I think Tetra Pak, I think it is a very global fact that it's a very difficult to recycle product because of the 3-layer. I mean, it's a fantastic product, not taking away from the kind of development that these products has given to mankind, and the kind of usability that we have, as it can be seen in the current crisis also. But making them more responsible and making them more, because they have definitely also earned a lot of profits in all these years. So I think when we talk about sustainability, we are just trying to ensure that we are less unsustainable. But I think to really get to a tune where we are in harmony with nature, I think a lot of these steps have to be taken, is what I feel. Because I think even in electronic waste, when EPR was introduced, it largely became a checklist approach.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think only on paper, a lot of companies were ensuring that their EPR targets were fulfilled. But how to really make it work, I think that's a task that all of us we have.
No, it's absolutely wonderful, Karan. You brought these points. I completely echo your thoughts that I think the most important point you're trying to bring out is that we still have a very long way to go. Yes. In terms of outcome. And the approach has to, I think that ecosystem needs to become more rich. I think that ecosystem needs to move from danda to more of people, giving people, industry a chance to move in. I think the environmental governance architecture of India is, I would say, quite regressive.
Correct.
It does not, there is too much of suspicion, and there is too much of, I mean, you're pronounced guilty continuously, even without a trial. And that kind of an environment. And of course, I don't want to get into the unethical practices which abound in this whole sector. But considering the unethical practices and this very kind of a regressive mechanism, what is happening is that we might say great things on paper, but when it comes to implementing, we really do a bad job, and that's because we do not uh, provide a level playing field. We don't allow people to participate. It is a very exclusionary system. It's not an inclusionary system. We need an inclusive system where instead of people continuously looking at each other from suspicion or hostility, whether it is environmentalists looking at industry with hostility and suspicion, or whether it is industry looking at government with hostility and suspicion. Unless we don't create this kind of a harmonious working environment, it's just going to be extremely difficult.
In fact, Rishi, I think if I can share a very personal experience also that I have constantly faced, I think to a great extent, it is also the fault of many of us stakeholders also, because the minute when it comes to the the commercials and talking about the real things, like in my case, I think things really changes where with a lot of companies we deal with, some of the largest companies, is where we said it's a waste. You will have to bear the cost.
Yeah.
There is no escaping it.
Yeah.
And if it has to be done, it has to be done in this manner. So I think to a great extent, there have been a lot of cutting of corners from a lot of us stakeholders as well. And I hope that now in the, like we call it, the sustainability 2.0 version, I hope that larger corporates also see that there is no shortcut. Otherwise, I mean, we are not going anywhere. I think it is very clearly seen, and I think also the positives that we see with such a small period of lockdown. I mean, if you compare to the years of the human traces and the way we have been consuming resources, 2 months is barely anything, but we still see the positives in such a beautiful manner. So I think it's very evident, and I think hopefully that we all work towards that common goal.
So one point, Karan, which you mentioned before you come to the next question, is that I think we need to start pricing the cost of waste disposal into the product itself.
Correct.
Yeah, because otherwise all the negative impact is felt by the society,
Correct.
whereas all the profit and everything, or the cost of production, sale, etc., is priced into it. It might be 10 rupees, 20 rupees, but that 20 rupees needs to explicitly say that, okay, we will spend 3 rupees in also ensuring that this is disposed of responsibly.
I totally agree. And I think which is where these companies who have done good for themselves for such a long time, they need to be also made responsible in how they can participate.
But this is also, Karan, where the consumer comes in.
True.
I think this is where mass consumer awareness and action is important. If consumers who are consuming these products tell their companies that we want you to take responsibility for the waste, then it will create that ecosystem where you and me will face much less hurdles and be able to do 100 times more work than we are doing currently.
Do you see the day where a lot of consumers or group of consumers come together and start boycotting products and companies, saying that I don't think it's an eco-friendly product, let me just boycott it?
I think that's absolutely, that's already happening. It's already happening in such a big way, but again, the numbers are still not in our favor, I would say, because and that's where the movement has to be continuously. Conscious consumerism is the only way to go, because there is no way we can rely just on government. And if we keep relying on government and our governance architecture, this is going to take forever. I think the biggest power is the power of money, which is in the hands of the consumer. The consumer can clearly tell the company that, okay, this is the amount of money I have in my hand, and I will give it to you if you comply with these things. If you don't give it, if you don't comply, then I will go to a competitor who is complying with these things. And I think that will be the biggest push for bringing about change and sustainability 2.0. Yes.
Okay, superb. So what we can clearly see that plastic as a product has many benefits, and that's not a problem. How do we better manage the plastic waste problem? And do you also see any entrepreneurial opportunities in this?
I only see entrepreneurial opportunities. I think it's more than 10, 15 years. And one of the other big areas where I'm passionate about is the green economy, which is green jobs. And I think the waste management, and I'm not just talking plastic right now, the whole waste management industry itself. I mean, the Prime Minister has been talking of $5 trillion economy. Right now, we are talking of Atmanirbhar and 20 lakh crore stimulus package, etc., etc. I think what are the rag pickers? The rag pickers are Atmanirbhar, right? The rag pickers are not asking you and me for a job. The rag pickers are picking up a certain XYZ amount of waste and bringing it to a recycler's point and selling it for a particular price. Now, if our economics and if we become progressive about managing the country in waste, then we start pricing it properly. You have millions of people who will just take to waste management on their own, Atmanirbhar. No need for doles, no need for a salary, no nothing, but it's just the economic incentives and pricing in of waste into each product will happen. Waste management will happen in each product. And I think the role is only for green jobs, only for entrepreneurs. Government's job should be only to govern, to manage, to make the rules, and to, in a civil manner, enforce those rules. Everything else should be in the private sector.
So, in fact, I just hope they don't come one day and say that be Atmanirbhar and manage your own waste and don't expect anything from the local authorities. But at the same time, I think, coming back to the earlier point when I was saying that, I think when products are introduced, I think a large part of our mindset does not look at the waste management at all. Personally, I think I've just become more aware about waste management and cleanliness, doing my vessels, and a lot of house experiences, because I really feel that your consumption changes when you're managing your own waste. And I really hope sincerely that everybody out there who's going through this small experience will come out in a much more sensitive manner. At the same time, I feel that every time a product is introduced, we never the entire life cycle, the circular economy, I just think that was absent for a lot of these times. To me, these things came very late, and I think especially after I became an entrepreneur and got into this sector. But I really feel that going forward, if this can also be captured somehow, so what we are also trying to do is we give data to companies that you're generating waste. What is the waste? Hazardous waste, non-hazardous waste, recyclable, non-recyclable, plastic. What grade of plastic? What is the kind of impact it will have on environment? And hence, this is what has to be done. So I just feel that the waste management aspect was always missing. But I think we have just realized that one such incident can collapse all our day-to-day activities in such a manner. So I really feel that out of that fear, I hope things should change. I think another thing, coming back to a lot of conversation with corporates is where we also need to have a clear. So I'll give a very interesting example. Say, for example, there's a large corporate, and they have a lot of subsidiaries giving them material, giving them different, supplying them material. Now, at the end of the day, whose responsibility it is? So if my supplier is generating waste, say for example, there is a sanitary pad manufacturer. Sanitary pad cannot be recycled. It will not degrade on its own till the time you incinerate it. So the only option is incineration. Now, if I have a manufacturer and I'm a brand, the manufacturer is generating waste. At the end of the day, what happens is the brand will say it is your responsibility. You're the one who has to take responsibility to recycle it. The manufacturer, the brand will put it on the supplier. The supplier manufacturer will say it's a brand whose product it is. So in all of this, there are just so many areas which are unclear, and ultimately the product lands up in the landfill. I think that the ownership and understanding the nature of waste, I think a lot of these things hopefully can lead to some positives as we move ahead. Rishi, most importantly, would be very glad to get your insights on this. You have been dealing, fighting, arguing, and also positively influencing so many policies, and interacting with so many government departments at multiple levels. Can you throw some light on what is the compliance framework in India like?
So, Karan, I would say that you are equally well placed to answer that. But the compliance framework, like I earlier mentioned, is one which is not very inclusive, which looks that there is a nature of hostility between all the stakeholders. And this is what really needs to, in a sense, change. And there needs to be a collaborative approach between all the stakeholders. But this is also where the role of the government and the government bodies, whether it's the pollution control board, but more importantly, the urban local bodies. Because if you look at the top Indian cities, and the urban local bodies have a very powerful role. I would say much more powerful than the pollution control board, because here there are people who've been elected, there are elected representatives, there are administrators, and I think these kind of bodies, working along with pollution control board and bodies like NGT and and the other bodies, MOEF, etc., can really work at improving the system a lot more. And some of the inputs we've given, but over a period of I mean, I want to give you one example. In 2014, the Mumbai development plan was to be made, and I, along with Jyoti Mapsikar from Sri Mukti Sangatna, were convening the subgroup on solid waste management. And there is a lengthy 2-hour YouTube video on that, where we made a presentation to the municipal corporation team about how land use needs to be concerned with waste management. Mumbai has 24 wards, and we said a progressive approach would be that you give at least 1 or 2 acres of land in each of these wards so that infrastructure can be put up for waste management and recycling. And this is even before the 2016 rules came in, because in Mumbai you can get everything except land. And so the role of the government should be to provide land, because unless you don't have land to process your waste, you're not going to be able to do anything. Any entrepreneur will tell you that they are able to get capital, they're able to get user fees, they're able to get a lot of things, but land is difficult. And also to follow a kind of policy where each ward becomes waste neutral. So nothing leaves the boundary of that particular ward. Like
Yeah,
in Mumbai,
no idea.
yeah, I mean, in Mumbai, if you look at Chembur and the whole eastern suburbs, people over there are fed up. They're saying we're not the city's garbage dump. And they have a point. Why should the waste from A ward or R North, R Central, P South all be traveling towards Devnar? So these are the places where government policy and functioning can improve a lot. And I think pollution control board can do a lot.
Since you mentioned pollution control board, I'll just share briefly my experience. Is at the same time, I know that there is so much on our shoulders. We have to be positive. So I'll actually start by sharing a quote that I had read when I was just starting out by Oscar Wilde, that we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're having this conversation. I mean,
Conversation. And
yeah.
I think my experience with MPCB, Maharashtra Pollution Control Board in particular, was, I think I'm sure it must have irritated them to a great extent. But asking basic questions, that when they say that India generates 2 to 3 million tons of electronic waste every year, and state-wise breakup is also given, I said, how do you get this data? So there was no answer. Like, how is inventorization done? How do you go and calculate it? Because that's the first step. Rishi, you'll be surprised. I shared this with you in great detail, but very recently I realized that even cigarette butts had plastic. The good thing is that the application, but the bad thing is that when you throw it again, it will not degrade on its own. It will take 800 years. So somebody has to pick it up and recycle.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience with the pollution control board was asking about these fundamental things, that if you have rules, if you have a regulation around it, how do you monitor it? How do you implement it? I have actually taught Excel sheet sitting in the pollution control board office. I said, okay, let us get ahead. You're getting stuck there. Let me teach you that, which is also, I think, our duty. Many times, maybe, that is gaps. But I just think that data is a big missing link. And I think implementation and governance, like you rightly said. But
yeah.
And I think just fantastic point that you said, that if we can start somewhere and say that every ward becomes environment positive, nothing big to achieve. We are saying that every ward becomes environmentally positive. We are not giving out anything. Whatever is being generated in terms of waste is being churned out in some way or the other. The recyclables is used, the non-recyclables will be treated, and the ward becomes positive. And I think this data, if it starts highlighting, like, imagine a very healthy competition amongst wards saying that, okay, okay, what gets the best.
Absolutely.
So,
And again, just as I mentioned, consumers in the past, right now, the role of citizens becomes so important in this case. Because, I mean, just imagine all the people who are participating in this discussion. If everybody were to just be getting in touch with their municipal council, that exerts so much more pressure. People like me have over the years been getting in touch with the municipal corporation councillors, and it becomes a jaded kind of an experience. I mean, they also know that very little pressure gets exerted on them. But if they see 100 people come in exerting that pressure, it completely changes.
in fact, I think that unity is missing. In fact, I was talking about you, and I would like to share that example here. That how recently there was an influx of so many types of plastics in garbage bags. There was biodegradable, there is oxy-biodegradable, on starch, and I mean the variety was great, but to a layman, and which is where I also realized that a lot of local authorities were taking advantage of this lack of information as well. That if you're using a normal bag and you have to use this particular brand, you have to use this particular quality, otherwise there'll be a fine of 25,000 rupees, which is a great money making mechanism. But I think if collectively, like even I'm now talking to you, I feel that even in an area, say for example, if there is a smaller suburb and a part of a suburb or a street also, or a few societies come together and say that let us start this initiative and do 1, 2, 3 things together. Let us try to also record and see that what is the kind of data that we can generate.
Right.
I think that could lead us somewhere.
Absolutely. I want to share, since I'm able to share, Karan, I don't know whether everybody is able to see it.
Others can also see it.
Yeah. So this is 15 days back, and the locality is very well known to you. I won't mention, but this is Andheri West, and this is how our garbage goes. I mean, I can see a glove over there, this whitish thing, and this is how we are. So this is how we're still disposing of our waste. There is no way you can recover plastic or anything from there. The leaves can be used, and this is how the waste is collected, right? Look at the kind of conditions in which people are working, and they're desperately trying to salvage stuff from there, and it just doesn't work. These kind of things, I mean, these did not go into the regular stream at all. This is from my own house. I've cleaned it, stored it separately. But these are the kind of things which we really need to be working. These are the municipal workers who are then forced to, and you and me or a lot of people don't even visit their kitchen dustbin, whereas these people have to deal with it in this kind of a manner. So this is what is, I mean, I think required. And sustainability 2.0 would really require, I think, millions of people and not leaving it to the government, taking charge of the issue at their own building, housing society level, at their own commercial complex, at their hospital, whatever. I mean, whatever is your circle of influence, people need to work in their circle of influence.
So, again, like you said, this awareness about cigarette butts and I think diapers, and so we've actually installed a separate bin in our building. Started saying that, because I think it, as a human, it tears you apart when you say that this is the waste I'm generating.
Right.
At the end of the day, there's somebody else who has to pick it up and handle it in any way. And Rishi, I'm sure you've gone through many more experiences than me, but when you talk to our Safai Mitras and sanitation workers, that don't you think this should change? I think they'll come back and tell you that we actually just worry about our day-to-day survival.
Absolutely.
Then if we have to pick up anything, I don't
then
think
they've just got so used to it that actually some of them feel very amused when I'm taking these photographs or having conversations with them. It is no longer a matter of concern for them because nobody's paid attention to them. And if somebody pays attention to them, then they feel surprised and they just got used to it.
So Rishi, I'm sure we both can keep going on and on. Like we keep discussing, and I think now we keep the floor open for questions from all our participants.
Right.
And Hemal will help us with that.
Thank you so much, Rishi and Karan.
I hope I was audible.
Yeah, Rishi, yes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Rishi and Karan. That was quite insightful and makes me ask the question, planet or plastic. and to which we all need to find an answer. And talking about questions, there are quite a few that we've received on the chat as well as on some personal chat, and I'll just quickly uh, take up a few questions, and would love to have your insights on these. So just one question. Can the recycling industry survive the COVID-19? I mean, do you still think that we can achieve a circular economy for plastics? And how is the recycling, how is the recycling impacted because of the COVID-19?
Yeah, Hemal, I think you'll have to repeat that. You were.
I understood.
Okay, good. Yes, Rishi.
So I think circular economy is a completely different and a much bigger discussion, which really takes things to the drawing board. And when we are talking a lot of plastics, it is again, when we talk of plastic recycling, this is what has to continuously be pointed out, right? It's never recycling. If it's a milk pouch or it's a PET bottle, then it is always downcycling. You don't end up putting 1,000 PET bottles and grinding them, and then you don't end up making 1,000 PET bottles of the same type. Invariably, you take a new feedstock, which is again the linkage to crude oil, and from virgin polymer you make new PET bottles. And there are talks by Coca-Cola and other companies, I think, of recycling them and using those bottles. But I think circular economy is one is I need to spend more time understanding it. I've been not paying too much of attention to circular economy for the simple reason that I feel that circular economy comes. My whole focus has been on waste management, and circular economy I feel is a slightly different domain from waste management. It is much more fundamental. It looks at products in a completely different manner. It looks at the whole sustainability from a value-based kind of a place. Whereas when we talk waste management, it is all about ensuring that waste does not become a crisis and we're managing it properly. But I think there are a lot of bright minds applying their mind to the circular economy. Again, the same thing happens. I mean, if you don't have enough of conscious consumers, then the market tends to respond only to the here and now. The market does not respond to great values and theory. It only responds to consumer demand. And if consumer demand is not there for products which embody circular economy principles, then it is going to, I think it's a chicken and egg situation. And I'm not the best person to answer on that and how we should break it. I would be more happier that if people became conscious consumers and actually started consuming less of products which damage the economy.
So, I mean, since you mentioned that, it just doesn't disappear or go away, that brings me probably to a next question that, I mean, you hear about microplastics entering drinking water, etc. So what is your take on it? How harmful is it for human consumption?
I mean, I think the answer is clearly that it is very harmful, right? I mean, and it is bioaccumulation is happening, and over a period of time, it becomes more harmful. And this is the role of the government. I think the role of the government is not to get down to collecting waste, picking waste, but it is to set standards and then monitor those standards and enforce those standards.
There's an interesting question, in fact. So plastic, we're talking about PET bottles and other plastic waste, but plastic also forms a very large component of e-waste. And how is that plastic managed? Is it having the similar challenges like other plastic streams? Karan, you want to share some views on this?
So electronic largely contains ABS and PVC. Yeah, and I think the challenge there is, I think there's about 20% plastic in electronics and electronic waste, which is not very difficult to recycle. But like if you take a printer or a cartridge, etc., then I think dismantling it and segregating it is a big challenge. Cleaning it is a very big challenge because some of these products contain carcinogenic in nature, which is cancer causing. And lastly, the various plastics are made, there are few chemical additives like bromine-added flame retardants, which is why recycling it is of utmost importance. But plastic recycling from electronic waste can be achieved. It's not big. It's not a big challenge.
There is another next question which says, could you suggest some community-wide solutions and initiatives for better managing waste, Rishi? Probably through your experience, and if you could.
I think, there are so many examples where I think community is the way to go forward. And there are so many examples in each of the Indian cities where communities come together and done a marvelous job. And in Mumbai, I keep taking the example of my favorite building, Marathon Era. And of course, there are buildings managed by RUR. There are 200, 300 families staying in a building, and yet they send less than 5 kgs of waste to the municipal stream, because all of these people cooperate, and behavior change happens, and then there is absolute cooperation between all the members, and this ensures very good compliance rates. And there's so many examples.
So in fact, Rishi, one of the ideas that we discussed in our last webinar, I think this was the second or third webinar that we did. We had somebody from Mr. Raman from Runwal Group, and we are largely managing a lot of malls. And one of the questions that I'd asked him that, do you think malls will lead the way? Because I think the expectation and the operation things will change. What we're hoping is malls will also not be the same way. When we look at sustainability and these practices, do you really think that if there is a very large mall in an area, like in a suburb, etc., it can lead the way in a lot of waste management and eco-friendly practices? So I think that was one very interesting thing where a community again can come together.
No, and these kind of places, when they set a good example, mall, etc., which is used by thousands and maybe millions of people, they can also communicate it very effectively to their own patrons, and that sets off such a nice virtuous cycle where people who are visiting the mall feel proud that they're visiting the premises which is values sustainability, and at the same time what that premises is doing is taken away by the patrons or the consumers and implemented maybe in their own buildings.
Yes.
I'll take the next question. It says, let's assume the consumer behavior may not change. If manufacturers start building it in their costing, how do we guarantee they comply with recycling obligations and not just build another revenue channel?
A very good question. I think so. So these are very tricky areas, but the fact is that I'll give you an example. Say in a lot of places where I've been working in the past 1 year, we've been observing that nobody's collecting glass bottles any longer. And when you speak to the rack pickers, etc., the answer is very clear that bottles, glass bottles especially, add a lot of weight. And the price that you get is just not commensurate. The price for glass has collapsed to 1 rupee a kg. So 1 rupee a kg is like unbelievable. So what you're saying is that dumping grounds, I'm seeing a lot of broken shards of glass, and it becomes difficult to visit the places because there is a distinct danger. So, and also to people who are working over there. And a lot of times this is being crushed in the compactor trucks and being thrown in water bodies, etc. Now imagine a product like glass. I would say that if the manufacturers had built in that, okay, this per bottle will be 3 rupees, 4 rupees, 5 rupees, then the person who's consuming the beer or any other product is going to be keeping the glass bottle aside. Because if you collect enough amount of it and on a per unit basis you're going to get paid, then so I can take a lot of other examples where it's not that the beer company will end up taking 3 rupees from the consumer and then it adds to their revenue and there is no compliance. I mean, these are things which we have to live with. I'm sure there'll be leakages, but
this time any excess money on alcohol, I think the consumer will happily take it.
Yeah. You can always knock it off against your next purchase.
We've seen priorities changing in the crisis, so.
Yeah.
There is an interesting question. Since we know that plastic is here to stay and so are other resources, how can we move towards 100% recycling? Karan, you want to add, having spent a lot of time in recycling, you want to maybe share some of your views, and then Rishi could share as well.
Can you repeat that question also?
Hello.
Repeat that question.
Yes. So since we know that plastic and other resources are here to stay, how do we move towards a more 100% recycling of them?
Recycling of plastic. I think one time. First,
So for me, the concern is, I mean, again, if I pick up, this is a mosquito repellent, the container. Now, these kind of products, why should it be going? This is very high quality plastic, HDPE. But if it has not been segregated at source by the consumer, then it will end up in a mixed waste stream. It will go to the compactor truck. It will land up at Devdar. And you don't know whether it will be picked up, etc. All of these products need to be prevented in the first place from going. And recycling and other things, and it will become so much easier if they're captured clean and diverted away from the mixed waste stream.
in fact, Rishi and I think others, one of the things we all know that even basic necessities are so much trimmed currently.
Yeah.
But this, I think it all starts from me, and I think it's all starts from the individual. Is all these plastic bottles, and in fact, I think since you showed that mosquito repellent bottle, is all the plastics, etc., bottles, empty bottles, I try to store it separately.
Yeah.
And I think assuming and hoping that the sanitation workers will get better value out of it. They don't have to dig inside the normal waste, the dry waste, wet waste, etc. Even after segregation, there's still a lot of dirt that we generate. But I think that also can ensure that at least somebody is benefiting out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll just take one more question in the interest of time. And it says that can government make rules to make biodegradable options mandatory? How do you see waste management rules changing post the crisis?
I think, good question. I think even before the corona crisis happened, and we've had a change of municipal commissioner in Mumbai. But in June last year, when Mr. Praveen Pardesi came in as the new municipal commissioner, one of the things which he set in was the long demanded option of property tax rebate for buildings which are carrying out composting, segregation and composting on source. So I think these are the kind of measures which really need to become more prevalent after the crisis, because all said and done, waste management really is another dimension is the health issue, and the coronavirus is a health issue. So is the waste management a health issue, and the first job of the municipal corporation is to ensure health and sanitation in the city, and towards that, managing waste, I think the priority only needs to go up post pandemic.
There is just one question which has come up for Karan, and since it's asked twice, I'll just take it up. So, Karan, you've worked with a lot of companies across sectors managing their waste. Do you see any change in the products or change in the way the waste is disposed going forward?
I feel so. I'll tell you, if I were to talk about electronic waste and if I were to talk about generally other things, there is willingness. But I think the minute it comes to commercials and the minute it comes to, like I gave an example, how about a brand initially would try to pass the buck and say that, it is not my responsibility. But I think now things are changing. It is very slow, but I think things are changing. I feel that the current crisis is a great opportunity for all of us to again get back on the drawing board and then take it up from there. A lot of conversations happening now with the companies who are also in lockdown want to start working on their waste management SOPs and waste management plans to ensure that they are ready once things start.
Great.
Emil, there are some questions I think which were very interesting on the panel. I'm seeing the chat. Maybe I'll take some, but if you have something, you can ask right now.
No, sure. I will just, in the interest of time, I had to select a few.
Yeah. There's something by this Miss Madhuri. What can societies do to ensure that their biohazardous waste goes to an incinerator? Is there a company that picks up and incinerates as a paid service? Very good question. I think these are the kind of services which have really not evolved and which need to evolve, because even if people keep their biohazardous waste separately, and the compactor trucks have a chamber, I think, but it's anybody's guess how well it is done. And I think just as she's asking the question on this panel over here, she needs to also raise that question with her municipal ward office. Because if you ask your assistant municipal commissioner or elected councillor and enough people ask them, then that is exactly how the service will come into place.
In fact, Rishi, since you mentioned about biohazard waste, you'll be surprised. And I think good discussion for both of us also. That one thing is very clear, that if it is biohazardous waste, it has to be sent to the common waste treatment facility.
Right.
Current scenario, they are not able to pick it up, which is also evident. And I think there is data now available that at the same time, they don't allow that, you can use some sort of an incinerator in your own premise and you can burn it. There is some bit of the rules. Don't you think there's a lot of ambiguity in these things as well?
Absolutely. I mean, we can discuss for 1 hour on just this rule. I mean, I'm not a big fan of incinerators, and none of us in the environmental lobby would recommend incinerators. But I think we cannot have a very hard black and white stand on anything any longer.
Sure.
Because I've been in discussion with some industries, and they had non-hazardous waste coming out, which also they had to send to a hazardous facility, which was charging them enormous amount. And to save on that cost, they were disposing it in an improper manner. But had incinerators been allowed on their premises, and they were willing to run it in a proper manner, but the MPCB rules prohibit people from setting up incinerators on their premises, which means that there is no monitoring, and people who would have liked to dispose their waste responsibly are forced to dispose it irresponsibly, because the cost of complying in another way would be too high. So these are the kind of, you need to be pragmatic about the whole approach.
I think a very valid point that you said is make the people accountable, ask the question to your local authorities. And I think that should change for all of us.
Yeah.
How is an individual capacity. So great, Rishi, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Like I mentioned in the past, I think our friendship and our association goes such a long way.
Right. No.
I'm truly delighted to have you with us today. And I really hope that, we can do a follow-up session where we can, there's actually a lot more detail. In fact, what we'll do is, I can also see there are so many questions.
Yeah, I'm also saying, I think there's something from Cecily, which I'm seeing right now, but yeah, I don't think we have time right now. You want to wrap up, but there are a lot of questions.
Yes, so maybe we can do a follow-up and we can actually, just please write to us on a social media page or anywhere. And I think there is so much, we'll be happy to answer your questions and keep following us, Sustainability 2.0. Thank you, Rishi, again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Karan. Thanks, Emil, and all the team at the recycling company. It's been wonderful And I'm just looking forward that this whole thing gets over and we get to meet actually.
Yes, likewise.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you everyone for joining in. Have a nice evening and a wonderful weekend ahead.
Karan, are you there?